before fashion trends, before clothing became decoration, before what we wore was separated from who we were. Dress told a story, not of status or wealth alone, but of identity, spirituality, and belonging. This is the story of Native American clothing, where every thread, color, and symbol carried meaning. Chapter 1. Clothing as Identity. For Native American tribes, clothing was never simply about covering the body or protecting it from the elements. What a person wore carried meaning, telling a story about who they were, where they came from, and how they lived. Dress served as a visible expression of identity, woven with history, responsibility, and belonging. Age, role, achievements, and spiritual standing could all be reflected through clothing. The garments of a child differed from those of an adult. A hunter's attire revealed skill and experience, while a healer's or spiritual leader's dress carried symbols of knowledge and responsibility. Colors, patterns, materials, and adornments were chosen with care, each holding significance understood within the community. Clothing was a language, one spoken without words. Feathers, beads, quills, hides, and woven fibers communicated lineage, accomplishments, and connection to the natural and spiritual world. These elements were not decorative in a casual sense. They carried stories, prayers, and honor. To wear such clothing was to carry identity with dignity. It reminded the individual of their place within the community and signaled that place to others. In this way, clothing reinforced respect, continuity, and cultural memory, ensuring that identity was not only felt, but seen and honored by all. Chapter 2. Materials from the land. Native American clothing came directly from the land itself. The materials used were gathered from nature with care, patience, and purpose. Animal hides, plant fibers, feathers, shells, and natural dyes were not simply collected. They were prepared through knowledge passed down over generations. Each step, from gathering to crafting, reflected respect for the life that provided it. Nothing was taken without reason. Animals were honored for their sacrifice. Plants were harvested carefully to ensure regrowth, and natural resources were used fully, without waste. Clothing carried the memory of the land, reminding the wearer of the relationship between people and nature. The land clothed the people, just as the people protected the land. This relationship was reciprocal rather than exploitative. By caring for the environment, communities ensured that future generations would also be sustained. Clothing became a visible expression of balance, responsibility, and gratitude. In wearing garments made from the earth, Native American people carried their connection to nature with them. Each piece served not only a practical function, but also reinforced identity, respect, and harmony with the world that sustained life. Chapter 3. Symbols, Colors, and Meaning. Colors in Native American clothing were never chosen at random. Each shade carried significance, drawn from spiritual beliefs, natural elements, and shared understanding within the community. Color communicated meaning before words were spoken. Red often represented strength, life, or the power of blood and survival. It reflected courage, vitality, and the force that sustained existence. White commonly symbolized peace, purity, or connection to the spiritual world, representing balance and harmony beyond the physical realm. Black could reflect power, mystery, or the unknown, not as something feared, but as something respected and deeply understood. Beadwork, patterns, and symbols transformed clothing into storytelling. Designs were carefully arranged to honor ancestors, record achievements, or reflect visions and dreams received through spiritual experience. Sacred animals, natural elements, and geometric forms each carried layers of meaning known within the tribe. To wear these symbols was to carry memory and meaning. Clothing became a living record of identity, belief, and history. Every garment reminded both the wearer and the observer that culture was not only spoken or remembered, it was worn. Chapter 4. Feathers and Honor. Feathers were never mere decorations in Native American cultures. They were symbols of honor, responsibility, and achievement. Each feather was often earned through an act of courage, leadership, service, or sacrifice, making it a visible record of a person's actions rather than their status alone. To wear a feather without earning it was considered deeply disrespectful. Feathers carried spiritual meaning and were treated with care, gratitude, and humility. They represented trust placed in the wearer by the community, as well as a reminder of the values they were expected to uphold. Headdresses, often misunderstood, were not everyday clothing or fashion accessories. They were ceremonial garments with deep spiritual significance, typically reserved for leaders, warriors, or sacred occasions. Each element of a headdress held meaning, and wearing one was an honor that came with responsibility. In this tradition, respect mattered more than appearance. What one wore reflected what one had done and how one had lived. Feathers served as reminders that honor was not claimed. It was earned through actions guided by courage, integrity, and service to others. Chapter 5. Regional differences among tribes. There was no single Native American style. Clothing varied widely among tribes, shaped by geography, climate, and daily way of life. Each region presented unique challenges, and tribes adapted their clothing accordingly, blending practicality with cultural expression. Plains tribes developed clothing suited for mobility and open landscapes, often using animal hides that provided warmth and durability while allowing freedom of movement. Woodland tribes crafted garments from plant fibers, bark, and hides suited to forested environments, often incorporating intricate beadwork and embroidery. Desert tribes designed clothing that protected against heat while conserving resources, using lightweight materials and earth-tone colors. Coastal tribes incorporated woven fibers, shells, and materials drawn from the sea, reflecting their close relationship with water. In every case, clothing reflected geography as much as culture. The land influenced not only how garments were made, but what they symbolized. Colors, materials, and designs carried meaning tied directly to the environment in which each tribe lived. This diversity was a strength. Differences in clothing expressed adaptation, creativity, and resilience rather than division. Together, these varied styles formed a rich tapestry of identity, reminding us that Native American culture was never singular, but beautifully diverse and deeply connected to the land. Chapter 6. Ceremonial versus daily dress. Daily clothing in Native American societies was practical and durable, designed for work, movement, and survival. Garments were made to withstand hunting, gathering, travel, and changing weather, allowing people to live actively within their environment. Comfort and function guided everyday dress, reflecting the rhythms of daily life. Ceremonial clothing was different. These garments were created for sacred moments rather than ordinary tasks. Worn during dances, rituals, and spiritual gatherings, ceremonial dress carried deep symbolic meaning. It was often richly decorated with beadwork, feathers, paint, and symbols that represented spiritual beliefs, history, and identity. Ceremonial garments were carefully preserved and treated with great respect. They were not worn casually or frequently, but brought out with intention when the moment called for them. To wear such clothing was an honor, accompanied by humility and awareness of its meaning. In this distinction, clothing reflected balance. Daily dress supported survival, while ceremonial dress honored spirit and tradition. Together, they showed that Native American life valued both the practical and the sacred, each given its proper place and respect. Chapter 7. Misrepresentation and stereotypes. Native American clothing has often been simplified, misrepresented, or distorted by popular culture. Sacred garments and symbols were reduced to costumes, separated from their meaning and worn without understanding or respect. In doing so, the depth, diversity, and identity of Native American cultures were erased or blurred into harmful stereotypes. This misrepresentation ignored the fact that clothing carried history, honor, and spiritual responsibility. Headdresses, beads, feathers, and patterns were portrayed as decorative or fashionable, stripped of the stories and values they represented. What was once sacred became misunderstood, and in many cases, disrespected. Yet within Native American communities, the true knowledge endured. Elders, artisans, and cultural keepers preserved the meanings behind traditional clothing, passing them on quietly and carefully. These teachings survived not through imitation, but through memory, practice, and respect. Despite misunderstanding from the outside, the truth remained alive within. Clothing continued to speak its original language, one of identity, dignity, and cultural continuity, reminding communities of who they were, even when others failed to listen. Chapter 8. Traditional Dress Today. Today, many Native American people continue to honor traditional clothing as a living expression of identity and resilience. Traditional dress appears in ceremonies, powwows, and cultural gatherings, where it serves as a powerful symbol of survival, pride, and continuity. Each garment represents a connection to ancestors and a statement of presence in the modern world. Traditional clothing is not worn to recreate the past, but to carry it forward. Designs, materials, and techniques continue to evolve as artisans adapt to contemporary life while honoring ancestral knowledge. New patterns and forms emerge alongside traditional symbols, reflecting both continuity and creativity. Wearing traditional dress today is an act of remembrance and resistance. It affirms identity in the face of historical erasure and celebrates culture that has endured despite centuries of disruption. These garments speak not only of history, but of survival and self-determination. Traditional dress is not frozen in time. It lives, grows, and changes, just as the people who wear it do. By honoring its roots while allowing it to evolve, Native American communities ensure that clothing remains a meaningful and powerful expression of culture for generations to come. Closing reflection. Clothing was never just something worn. It was something lived. Every stitch carried memory. Every symbol carried responsibility. To wear tradition was to honor the past, serve the present, and walk forward with respect. Welcome to Mode Hub Tales,